Most wars start slowly. They start with warnings nobody listens to, with headlines people scroll past, with experts saying it won't go that far. And then one morning, the world wakes up and everything has changed. That morning is today, February 28th, 2026. And right now, there are five undeniable signs and five concrete, factual, documented developments that suggest the world is not just edging toward World War II, it may have already begun the first chapter of it. These are not conspiracy theories. These are not social media panics. These are facts drawn from governments, militaries, intelligence agencies, and the world's most respected news organizations. So sit down, pay attention, and understand what is actually happening, because the version you are getting on your phone's notification feed is not telling you the full story. Sign number one: a superpower just killed another country's head of state, and that country has already fired back across an entire region. On the morning of Saturday, February 28th, 2026, the United States of America and Israel launched a coordinated military operation against the sovereign nation of Iran. The operation, designated Operation Epic Fury by the Pentagon and Operation Lion's Roar by Israel, struck targets across Thran, Isfahan, KM, Karaga, and Kermanshah, sending shockwaves through the Middle East and sparking immediate global talk of World War II.
About 200 Israeli fighter jets took part in the strikes in the morning, hitting approximately 500 targets. The U.S. military participated using aircraft and cruise missiles. And then came the event that changed everything. The United States and Israel killed the supreme leader of Iran. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who has ruled Iran since 1989, was struck in an Israeli airstrike on his compound in Tehran. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said there were growing signs Khamenei had been killed, and President Trump confirmed his death in public remarks. Think about what that means historically. The United States just killed the head of state of a nation of 93 million people. Iran has the largest ballistic missile arsenal in the Middle East. It has proxy forces across 7 countries. It has been building toward nuclear capability for 2 decades, and now its supreme leader is dead, killed by an American-backed military operation. Iran's response was immediate and enormous. Iran launched retaliatory strikes, firing missiles and drones at Israel and U.S. bases in Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE. Iran also struck a second blow at U.S. military bases using Fatah hypersonic missiles. And the IRGC announced attacks on 14 American bases across various countries. This is not a skirmish. This is not a limited airstrike followed by diplomatic de-escalation. This is a superpower attacking a regional power, killing its leader and that regional power, firing hypersonic missiles back at American military installations across a dozen nations simultaneously. This is the definition of an active war between the United States and a major regional power. That alone should terrify anyone who knows their history, because history tells us that wars of this scale almost never stay contained to where they start. Sign number 2, the world's most critical oil choke point has been closed for the first time in history. You may have heard the name before without fully understanding what it means. The Strait of Hormuz. It is a narrow strip of water just 21 miles wide at its tightest point, running between Iran and Oman. And it is the single most important piece of ocean on planet Earth when it comes to energy. By 2025, around 15 million barrels of oil per day flowed through the strait. All liquid natural gas must be transported by ship through that same channel. The strait had never been successfully closed for an extended period during any previous Middle East conflict until today. After coming under attack from the U.S. and Israel, Iran appeared to exercise one of its most powerful options for retaliation. A semi-official Iranian media outlet described the strait as effectively shut, and ships in the region reported hearing a radio broadcast purporting to come from the Iranian Navy, announcing that transit through it was banned. some oil and gas tankers immediately began avoiding the waterway. The IRGC ordered the complete closure of the Strait of Hormuz. According to Reuters, vessels received messages on very high frequency from the IRGC stating, "No vessel is allowed to pass through the Strait of Hormuz." Let that land for a moment. The most important waterway in global energy history, a channel that has stayed open through wars, revolutions, hostage crises, and proxy conflicts for decades, is now closed. Iran closed it with a radio announcement and the threat of military force to back it up. A prolonged disruption of traffic in the strait, which accommodates giant tankers fleeing from the Middle East to China, Europe, the US, and other major energy consumers, would trigger a spike in oil prices and potentially destabilize the global economy. Dubai's airports, among the busiest in the world, shut down completely, grounding hundreds of flights and snarling global travel. Airlines across the Middle East canceled routes. Airspace across Iran, Israel, Iraq, and parts of the Gulf closed simultaneously. Now, some of you are thinking, well, America gets most of its oil domestically. Why does the Strait of Hormuz matter to me? Here is why oil is a global commodity. It is priced globally. When the strait closes and a quarter of the world's seaborne oil supply suddenly disappears from the market, prices spike everywhere, including at your gas station, your grocery store, and in every product that requires transportation, manufacturing, or energy to produce, which is every product. You will feel a closed Strait of Hormuz within weeks at your kitchen table. This is not theoretical. This is economics. Sign number 3. Russia and China are already in the water. Here is where the story stops being a regional Middle East conflict and starts looking like the architecture of something far larger. Just 10 days before the strikes on Iran, a remarkable thing happened that most Americans did not pay attention to. Russia, China, and Iran conducted joint naval exercises in the Strait of Hormuz, dubbed Maritime Security Belt 2026. The drills included firing anti-ship cruise missiles at targets, an IRGC naval drone, and submarine units carrying out operations. Armed drones capable of engaging both air and sea targets were deployed. Russia's presidential aide, Nikolai Patrushev, stated that the exercises were to build a multipolar world order in the oceans, adding, "The Maritime Security Belt 2026 exercises in the Strait of Hormuz, where Russia, China, and Iran sent their ships, have proven their relevance." Think about what that means. Russia and China conducted military drills with Iran in the Strait of Hormuz, the exact same waterway Iran is now closing in retaliation for American strikes just days before those strikes happened. That is not a coincidence. That is coordination. That is strategic alignment. Russia and China were not surprised by this war. They were positioning themselves for it. Russia's foreign minister condemned the strikes, calling them unprovoked aggression. China's Ministry of Defense stated that the United States had become the largest cause of violation of the international nuclear order. Analysts warned that the most important indicator to watch right now is not the number of bombs being dropped on Iran, but the statements coming from the Kremlin and Beijing. If those statements shift from condemnation to active support, if Russian or Chinese warships in the strait begin actively protecting Iranian vessels, the entire strategic calculation of this war changes overnight. The week reported that serious analysts have expressed concern that Russia may escalate and that the world, as it has done so many times in the era of mass warfare, may sleepwalk its way into an engulfing conflict. That phrase, sleepwalk into conflict, is exactly how World War I began. Nobody planned it. Nobody wanted it at the full scale it became. But alliance systems, proxy commitments, and national pride dragged power after power into a war that killed 20 million people. We are watching alliance systems activate in real time right now, and most Americans are not paying attention to it. Sign number 4. Iran has weapons it has not fully used yet. and they are more advanced than most Americans realize. One of the most dangerous assumptions driving American public discourse right now is this: Iran is a weak, backwards country that cannot seriously threaten the United States. That assumption is wrong, and it could get Americans killed. Iran has already used Fatah hypersonic missiles in this conflict, a new generation weapon with heavy warheads. The IRGC announced a second wave of attacks on U.S. bases in the region using this system. Hypersonic missiles travel at more than 5 times the speed of sound. They can maneuver mid-flight, making them extremely difficult to intercept with conventional missile defense systems. Most of America's missile defense infrastructure was designed to intercept slower, more predictable ballistic trajectories. A hypersonic missile that maneuvers during approach is a fundamentally different challenge. Iran is holding some of its most capable missiles in reserve. The full scale of its retaliatory capability has not yet been demonstrated in this conflict. What we have seen so far, the hundreds of drones and missiles fired at Gulf states, the Fatah hypersonics, the announced second and third waves of strikes, is Iran's opening response, not its maximum response. Iran still holds 440 kilos of highly enriched uranium, enriched to 60% purity, a technical step from weapons-grade levels of 90%. Paul Ingram, research affiliate for the Center of Existential Risk at the University of Cambridge, stated that while Iran's nuclear infrastructure has been damaged, the incentives for Iran to actually build a nuclear weapon have gone through the roof following these strikes. A country that believes it faces existential military attack from the most powerful military alliance in the world has every incentive to cross the nuclear threshold as fast as possible. AI models analyzing the conflict estimated the probability of nuclear conflict between Israel and Iran at 0.5 to 1%, which is small in percentage terms, but psychologically and politically very alarming. A 1% chance of nuclear exchange is not something you dismiss, not when you are talking about weapons that can flatten cities. And here is the part nobody in Washington is saying clearly. If Iran builds and uses a nuclear weapon, even a crude one, the entire world changes. Every alliance, every treaty, every security arrangement on Earth gets recalibrated overnight. And the pressure on the United States to respond would be enormous, not just militarily, but in terms of how it manages relationships with every nuclear-armed state simultaneously. Russia, China, North Korea, Pakistan, all of them would be watching, calculating what the American response reveals about American red lines. This is why the nuclear dimension of this conflict cannot be treated as a footnote. Sign number 5, America's own homeland is now a declared target, and the threat is already inside the door. This is the sign that is most personal for every single American watching this video, because the previous 4 signs are happening overseas. But sign 5 is happening here right now on American soil. The Department of Homeland Security issued a critical threat alert following the strikes. The alert warned that the killing of Supreme Leader Qam would almost certainly prompt retaliation from Iran and its proxies, including Hamas, Hezbollah, and Iraq-based militias, and that DHS was most concerned in the short term about cyber attacks from Iran-aligned activists targeting U.S. infrastructure. That word infrastructure means your power grid, your water treatment plants, your hospital networks, your financial institutions, your transportation systems. Iran does not have to fire a missile at Chicago or Houston to hurt the American people. It has a cyber warfare capability that has been tested, refined, and deployed over the past decade. Iranian hackers have previously penetrated American financial institutions, energy companies, and government agencies. They have been building this capability precisely for a moment like this. Tom Warwick, a former Deputy Assistant Secretary at the Department of Homeland Security, who served under both Republican and Democratic administrations, wrote that this war will have a home front in the United States. He warned that the Secret Service, the FBI, and the U.S. Capitol Police will all be tested in the coming weeks and can afford zero failures. Think about that. A senior career counterterrorism official, someone without a political axe to grind, is warning in plain language that American law enforcement will be tested at home because of this war. He is not saying it might happen. He is saying it will happen, and that the question is whether American security services can respond successfully. Iran, he noted, has a peculiar sense of symmetry when it comes to retaliation. The killing of its supreme leader will almost certainly prompt attempts to target senior American officials. And beyond cyber and assassination threats, there is the question of Iran's proxy network inside the United States. Intelligence agencies have documented Iranian-linked networks operating in this country for years. Not large-scale military threats, but cells capable of carrying out targeted violence. The FBI has been monitoring and dismantling these networks continuously, but no intelligence apparatus has a 100% success rate. And an Iran that just lost its supreme leader and its top military leadership has every ideological and emotional motivation to demonstrate that it can reach inside America. This is the war coming home, not in the dramatic way of missiles hitting American cities. Not yet. Not likely in the near term, but in the form of cyber disruptions, infrastructure vulnerabilities, potential targeted violence, and the generalized anxiety of a nation that is now actively at war with a country that has declared every American military installation in the Middle East a legitimate target. So, where does all of this leave us, and what does it mean for World War II specifically? Here is the honest assessment. As of tonight, the world is not yet in a World War II. The major nuclear powers, the United States, Russia, China, and others have not declared war on each other. Russia and China are condemning the strikes diplomatically, not responding militarily. Hezbollah has expressed support for Iran, but has not announced direct military action. The conflict, as massive as it is, remains primarily between the U.S.-Israel alliance and Iran, with Iranian proxies fighting in the surrounding region. But here is what makes this moment genuinely different from every other Middle East crisis of the past 30 years. Every previous crisis had an obvious off-ramp, a ceasefire mechanism, a mediator both sides trusted, a clear set of demands that, if met, would end the hostilities. This conflict came just 2 days after nuclear talks in Geneva, mediated by Oman, ended with the mediator describing significant progress, and then the bombs fell anyway. That means the diplomatic track failed at the moment it seemed closest to success. Iran's foreign minister said Tehran was interested in de-escalation, but stated this is not our war. This is a war imposed on us. Americans must pay for it. He said there are no contacts currently, but that Iran knows how to reach them if the U.S. wants to talk. Analysts point out that if tomorrow brings news of tactical nuclear weapons being used, or the entry into battle of regular Russian or Chinese military units, the global war assessment has to be revised sharply upward. Those are not predictions, they are thresholds. And right now the world is sitting just below those thresholds, watching to see if anyone crosses them. The 5 signs are real. The Strait of Hormuz is closed. The supreme leader of Iran is dead. Russia and China are already positioned in the water. Iran has weapons. It is not fully deployed. And the American homeland is a declared target of retaliation. Baba Vanga, the Bulgarian mystic whose predictions have circulated for decades, reportedly warned of a major global conflict in 2026. Her followers are flooding social media right now, citing that prophecy. You can take that for whatever it is worth.
What is worth far more is what the actual generals, the actual diplomats, the actual intelligence officials and the actual markets are saying. And every single one of them is saying the same thing right now in their own language. This is the most dangerous moment in a generation. The situation can change dramatically in 48 to 96 hours in either direction. And the window for de escalation is narrow, shrinking, and closing fast. The question is no longer whether this war is happening, it is. The question is whether it stays a regional war between America, Israel, and Iran, or whether the dominoes that are already trembling begin to fall in a direction nobody can control. Pay attention, share this, talk to your family, know what is happening, because the first casualty of every war, and before the soldiers, before the civilians, before the infrastructure, is the public's understanding of what is actually going on and why. That understanding is the only thing that can hold governments accountable. And right now, with the world this close to the edge, accountability matters more than it ever